also hear that Justin Pugh's coming back from a big golf trip, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Appreciate it, Justin. How you been, my man?
Zach, I'm doing great. I'm just got back from the Open. I was out in Scotland for the Open. I was in Ireland for a little bit, checking in on my brothers across the pond, and I'm back in New York. So it's good to be back in America.
Was that the first ever major championship you've ever attended for golf? Just wondering.
I've been to a U.S. Open and I've been to the Masters. So I will say Augusta is still number one. If you can get to that event, it's one of one. But it was truly important for me to see how that European link style golf is played. And I played golf while I was there and got my butt kicked. So I truly respected those guys. When you see them make bogeys or hit one out of bounds, I was like, all right, it's not just me.
Yeah, you bring up the Masters. That's actually a sore subject today. I got my rejection email. It's the first year I put in for tickets, and I got rejected. So I'm hoping by the time I'm like 60 and I turn 30 in a few weeks that I'll be able to get to Augusta, Justin.
Just keep those fingers crossed.
No doubt about that. Justin Pugh here with us. All righty, let's get to the Cardinals. I'm going to start with their new wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought he was the best wide receiver in the draft. I thought he was the best player in the draft. We've seen young wide receivers take the league by storm. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Even this past year, no one thought it was going to happen, but Puka Nacua did that with the LA Rams. Year one expectations for Marvin Harrison Jr., what do you think he brings to the Cardinals?
Yeah, he's a dynamic playmaker, the receiver one. I think he's a favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, him or Caleb Williams. I think he'll be the best rookie receiver this year. He's going into a great situation. I love the Cardinals offense. Kyler Murray's going to have a big year. You have James Conner in the backfield being able to take some pressure off. The offensive line has gotten better. Obviously, they lost DJ Humphries, which I think will be a little bit of an impact. But I think everything is there. Trey McBride is there as ascending tight end. I really think it lends itself to Marvin Harrison having a breakout season. I think he will end up being Offensive Rookie of the Year.
We'll get to the quarterback in just a second, Kyler Murray. The offensive line, Paris Johnson Jr. now in year number 2. I know you know some of the big fellas up front, but how do you evaluate their offensive line heading into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that they've made some good jumps. Now, you lose some veteran leadership with DJ Humphries. He'd been a stalwart there at left tackle for years. You're moving Paris Johnson from right tackle to left tackle. You're bringing in Jonah Williams. You have Will Hernandez, who's been a steady force. Left guard, they're still trying to kind of figure out who's going to be that guy. They might be calling me here shortly to see if I want to drive down the street and go play. But I feel very comfortable with the offense. They were aggressive last year. They were fun to watch. They were in every game. And when Kyler came back, he played great football. And there's a lot of ascending players on this offense. I don't think it's the year for the Cardinals just yet, but they are building something special, and I think it's gonna show on the field this year.
Well, what is your deal? I know you returned to the Giants last year midway through the season, and you just talked about maybe the Cardinals calling you. Are you still interested? Do you still want to play in the NFL?
I do. I do still want to play. I think really for me it comes down to a place that I'm familiar with, a place that I'm comfortable with. I probably would say that place is the New York Giants if I were to come back and play this year. But it has to be the right situation. And I liked last year. I didn't have to do training camp. Kind of came back in, started the last 12 games of the season. It was a good deal for me. So yeah, we'll see. As teams call, we evaluate every situation. I'm not turning any of them down. I did not retire. I'm open to playing, but it has to be the right fit, and then we're waiting on that.
How long do you hope to take to make that decision? Like, could this be another thing where you return in October, November? Or are you looking to get back in right away?
I think I'm open to both. Like, I think if I'm not signed with the team before the beginning of the season, we let things play out a little bit. Like, going back to New York last year, I went back to the Giants, and they were 1-6. I knew the environment I was getting into, but I felt obligated. Maybe not obligated is not the right word, but I felt compelled to go back to the team that I got my start at and get back into the New York market. I love New York City, but I also live right down the street in Arizona. So if things are going well with them and they need a left guard, and that's the position that I want to play, I wouldn't be, against that reunion as well. And then there's some, teams that are probably making a playoff run. But the New York Giants are really the team I have circled on my short list.
Justin Pugh here with us. We'll get back to the Giants in just a bit, but since we brought you on to preview the Cardinals. We'll continue with them. Kyler Murray, when you look at him, right, he was stuck in that good quarterback conversation, not a great quarterback, then gets hurt, barely played last year, and now there's some big expectations for him to get going again. You've been around Kyler. What is he as a quarterback?
He's progressed every year. I mean, he came in as a rookie and basically makes Pro Bowls just purely off of athleticism and his God-given talent. And he is one of the most talented players I have ever played with. He's gotten better. He's matured. There was a whole deal with his contract and things like that. But I know Kyler firsthand. I think coming off of the injury, he has something to prove. He's hungry. He's got a great receiver. We saw what he did when he had DeAndre Hopkins. You get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who everyone thinks the world of. There's a guy there, Greg Dortch, who I think some people I don't think he's as slept on anymore as he once was. Michael Wilson coming back. You have Trey McBride. So I'm very optimistic on the Cardinals offense. The issue I think I have is who are the guys in the defense that are going to make plays? And that it's going to be more of a committee effort. There's going to be multiple guys making play. There's not that pass rusher on the Cardinals that is a closer in a game like some other teams have. So I think that's where the Cardinals still have a little bit of way to go. They addressed that in the draft. I think that it was Darius Robinson they took in the first round, but I think they still have a little ways to go on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And if the offense, if there's some rust to start the season, then the defense really comes crashing and burning down because that defense is not expected to be a good unit. So that it even puts more pressure on the offense because you know this, a good offense can help out a defense that's struggling a bit.
Oh, of course. And you look at safety. I mean, you have Budda Baker, you have Jalen Thompson. I mean, those guys are studs. You have Dennis Gardeck, who's been there, been a great playmaker for them. But, again, it's a very much a balanced NFL. If you don't have one or the other, you're going to get exposed. So you can only put up so many points, and maybe they can put up points early and the defense can do some things. But, this is a continuation to rebuild this team. And I think we're in the first phase, the first few innings, and Kyler Murray has a long career. Marvin Harrison, a long career to go. Trey McBride, all these young names I keep mentioning, there's a lot of core pieces to be excited about if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan.
And the one thing that I'll say, Justin Pugh, and I think it's a good endorsement for the coach, Jonathan Gannon, who I was very skeptical of when he got hired. I know they were 4-13 last year, but they were competitive for a roster that isn't really all that talented and was lacking a lot. I thought they played very hard for their coach last year.
You love to see that, and I think that was probably the biggest boost for the coaching staff, that these guys went out and they played hard for you. And I think that is an always a good thing, but you never know. When teams start losing consecutively, guys start to lose that luster and that momentum. So you really need to see them take that step. You want to see them in that 500 range this year, maybe, have a chance to get into the playoffs, making a push, staying in it the whole season. Because if you start having consecutive losing seasons, it starts to wear on guys, and the game is so mental. The game is so much how you wake up on a Sunday morning feeling, and if that coach can't motivate you or get you to the next step, it starts to fall down the wayside. So you need to see progression, and that's something that, I'm looking forward to seeing from the Cardinals this year.
We know how good the 49ers can be. They're in Super Bowl or bust mode. The Cardinals are continuing this rebuild as we've laid out. What are your thoughts on the Rams and the Seahawks going into this year, Justin?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to be going through a little bit of an identity crisis themselves. The Rams and the Niners, you know who they are. I think they finished 1-2 in the division with the Rams being second and the 49ers being first. I think the 49ers have the most talented team in the NFL. They have to get some contract things figured out with their receivers. But as long as they can figure out the accounting and the contracts for those players, I think they're still the team to beat. The Rams, Cooper Kupp goes down. You're like, oh, the Rams have no weapons. And all of a sudden you have the running back, Kieran Williams, step up. And then you have Puka Nacua stepping up. And all of a sudden they're reloaded again. And McVay is one of the best offensive minds in football. So the Seahawks still have a ton of talent. I don't necessarily think that they are ready to take that next step. Geno Smith's a great quarterback. I don't know if he's at that elite level to get them over the hump. But I see the Cardinals and the Seahawks towards the bottom half of that division, competing for a chance to maybe make the playoffs. NFC West has always been a very good conference, but it's going to be hard when you have a team like the Rams and the Niners sitting in there at the top. And the Seahawks are always a very tough place to play as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Wrap it up with Justin Pugh. All right, you talked about your interest of potentially going back with the Giants. They've beefed up that offensive line this year, especially in the interior. Now you take a look at that offensive line, you being able to play in New York before, and then also knowing what it takes to play offensive line in this league. How do you kind of look at this Giants offensive line headed into this season?
Yeah, I mean, look, last year there was a bunch of injuries. You look at your All-Pro Andrew Thomas, who had some injuries last year. He's coming back. You brought in Jermaine Illuminor. He's playing guard. John Michael Schmidt in his second year. I think he takes a big step. I love what he did last year. He's a leader. You bring in John Runyon, who was one of the best pass protectors in the league last year. I love what the Giants did. And then you have Evan Neal. I think a lot hinges on Evan and how he is recovering from that injury. You need him to be that tackle that you drafted him to be. And if that doesn't happen, I would see Jermaine Illuminor moving out there. They brought in a veteran, Greg Van Rotten. And I saw he came in free agency yesterday. He's a solid player. So I think that the Giants made a lot of upgrades, and they have a lot of talent on the roster. They're still similar to the Cardinals, trying to figure out who they are. We saw in Hard Knocks they talk about what's our identity. And Joe Shane comes back to it, hey, we're paying the quarterback to be that guy. You go out and draft Malik Neighbors. They're starting to show what the identity that they want to have, and that's to throw the ball and air it out a bit. Devin Singletary's no slouch. He's had some great seasons there in Houston. So the Giants are still figuring out, where they fit into the mix. You have Dallas, you have Philly. You have two very good teams in the division. It doesn't take 1 year to rebuild to beat those kind of teams.
I know the offensive line, as you talked about, had just so many guys rotating in and out last year. You being a part of that, coming off the couch and then ended up playing some games for the Giants. The quarterback, though, it feels like to me, I know they're giving him a chance, but I would be shocked if he's their guy heading into next season. What's kind of your evaluation with the little time that you were around Daniel Jones?
Yeah, unfortunately with the injuries Daniel had last year, I got to play, I think, 2 series with him, so I never really got a chance to see, what he was at 100%. And that's the questions that he'll have to face this year. There's going to be a lot of pressure. You're in New York. It's not an easy place to play, but when you win, it's the best place to play. And it's the make-or-break season for him. He knows it. He's coming off ACL injury. Does he have all the tools? Does anyone have all the tools? Not everyone gets put in different situations, but they're paying him to uplift guys around him. And if he shows that progression and he can take those next steps, they have him under contract. You see these quarterback contracts are going to start becoming north of $60 million. So with the cap increasing, I don't think the salary is as big of a concern as it would previously, or people make it out to be. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what the Giants do. You look at defense, you have Dexter Lawrence, who's probably the best defensive tackle in football. You just go out and get Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Bobby Okereke. The Giants have a lot of core pieces. It's just continuing to kind of round out that roster and continue to push to beat the Dallases and the Philadelphias, because they are perennially just been the top teams in the conference or division.
It just doesn't have to pertain to the Giants and the Cardinals, the two teams we're talking about on the way out with Justin Pugh, but in a market like New York, I think it's more of a bigger conversation. Like, you have guys like Daniel Jones and Evan Neal. Obviously, they got to stay healthy. That's the physical part of it. But it's the mental side, too. Just kind of with your experience, what advice would you give them when people are counting you out and you got to deal with all the mental side of it instead of just the physical stuff that gets you on the field?
That's the biggest difference between a place like Arizona and a place like New York. Like the Arizona media, there's like 5 to 10 reporters in there. They typically are pretty positive. You know them. You're friendly with them. New York, you have 50 media members in there. And New York media, there's a lot more pressure playing in New York City. It takes a certain type of player to be successful in New York. It's what made Eli Manning so great for so long, the even-keeledness. But it is something that I would give any recommendation to any player to go out there and face it head on. If you play bad, say it. If you play good, say it. At the end of the day, if you don't play well and you don't play well enough for a long period of time, you will not have a job. So I treat New York differently than a lot of people would. I face it head on, and I come out and talk and joke around and have a good relationship with the media. Because in New York, if you don't give the media a story to write about you, they're going to still write one, but it might not be the one you want to be written. And that's the one piece of advice I would give to any young player. Be yourself, be honest, be open. The film doesn't lie. Everyone's going to know if you mess up or have a good game or bad. If you own it and you move forward, you're going to be successful.
Make sure you check out his podcast, Net Worth with Justin Pugh, bridging the gap between the business of the NFL and fans. Justin, appreciate the time as always, and welcome back to America, all right?
Thanks, Zach. I'll talk to you soon. Good luck with your Masters tickets.
Yeah, better luck next year is the approach I'm taking.